Hi, this is Sherry Summers, and this is the beginning of my short series on pronouncing American English names. So what I've done is asked a lot of people to give me some names that they find hard to pronounce in American English, and I've divided them into categories. And in this short video, I'd like to go over some one-syllable names and tell you how they're pronounced. So here's the first list of one-syllable names. You'll notice some things in common. Actually, if you look down this list right here, you'll notice that we have, in fact, all of these names end with an N. Okay, that doesn't mean that all one-syllables end with an N, but these ones happen to have an N at the end, and that actually does something to the name. If you have a consonant at the end of a word, that uses your voice, and if you'll say the n with me, you'll notice you're using your voice. In fact, you can even put your hand on your throat and say n, and you'll feel a vibration. That's your voice box working. So these one-syllable words that end with a voiced consonant like this, they're actually going to be a little bit longer than words that end with an unvoiced consonant, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. So here's our first word, R-O-N. This is pronounced Ron. This A here in my symbols represents the sound ah. It's actually the same ah like father. Ron. Ron. D-O-N is nearly the same. It's Dawn. Dawn. J-O-H-N and J-O-N sound exactly the same as each other, and they are very similar to the ones above. They start with the J sound, which looks like this, and then on. So, John. John. You'll want to make sure that your ah is the same as the ah as in father. And you'll notice that all of these are spelled with an O. R-O-N, D-O-N, J-O-N or J-O-H-N. Now our next name actually has an A spelling, but it doesn't sound like ah. This name is Stan. Here's the symbol for A. This is the A like cat. Stan. And similar to that is the name Dan, D-A-N. Okay, so often when you see an A spelling in a one-syllable name, the sound will be A as in cat. G-E-A-N sounds like Jean. Jean. The E-A is a long E sound. E as in seat or she. Now, interestingly enough, S-E-A-N is usually pronounced differently. It's actually similar to this S-H-A-W-N, which is also similar to the words up above with the spelling of O. This is the sound Sean. Sean. Now you'll have to be careful. You may need to ask somebody if their name is spelled with an S-E-A-N if you're pronouncing it correctly, because some people may have some other ways that they want it to be pronounced. And finally here we have a long A sound in the word Wayne. Wayne. All right, let me give those to you again. We have Ron, Dawn, John, Stan, Dan, Jean, Sean, and Wayne. All right, let me show you some other names. Now we see that these don't all end with an N, they end with some different things, but on this page you'll find that every single name ends with a voiced consonant, or here we have a vowel which is also voiced. So that means our sounds will be just a little bit longer. All right, so let's go down and try these out. We have Tim. Be careful on this. You want to make sure that you use an I sound. The I as in fish, not E. If you use an E, it'll sound like team, T-E-A-M. So be very careful. Tim. And if you're not sure of the vowels, you may want to check out the American Accent course and learn exactly how you need to be pronouncing them. Then we have Jim. Very similar to Tim. Here we have Joe. Again, this D and the little symbol after that represents a J sound. Now be careful if you have a word that ends with O that you hear two pieces to it. You don't hear O. You hear O. O. This name is Joe. Here we have call. Call. Now you'll notice something interesting. Not all dictionaries and pronunciation teachers will show you this, but between the vowel and the L we put a little tiny sound. And this is what it does. It makes it sound like, instead of call, listen, call. Call. A little longer, isn't it? The same thing happens with bill. We put a little extra schwa in there, we get a little more length. That's because of the L at the end. Bill. And watch out for the I. It sounds like I, not E. And Paul. Pa, the ah, as in John and Sean. We have that same ah sound here. And we have Paul. Paul. All right, this might surprise you a little bit. This is Doug. The O-U is an sound. As in fun. In fact, did you know that D-O-U-G sounds exactly like D-U-G, which is the past tense of dig? Doug. Doug. And our last name here, we can actually say this two ways. The correct way would probably be Craig, with an A sound, A. But you'll also hear a lot of people say Craig, just with an E sound. Craig, Craig, Craig. Okay, let's go through this again. We have on the top, Tim, Jim, Joe, Cole, Bill, nice and long, Paul, Doug, and Craig or Craig. Okay, I have a few more left for you. You'll notice that the first two still end with a voiced consonant at the end, which means you'll hear a little bit longer sound, especially in the vowel before it. Here we have Clyde. This is the sound I, as in hi. Clyde. And here we have, you've got to watch out for this or, but this is Jor. And then another J on the end. Be careful that you're not saying Georgie or Georgia or anything like that. This is just George. And by the way, this or in here is the same or as in more, store, bore. So George, George. M-A-R-K is Mark. In fact, it looks exactly like the spelling, doesn't it? This is a symbol for R. This is the same sound as in car, far, mark. And K-I-R-K has a basic sound. We can write it like this. You might see it in dictionaries written like this. But what this is an as you would say, sir, bird. The name is Kirk. Kirk. And then finally, we have P-A-T, and just like these other words that have an A, we're going to use an A. So this name is Pat. Pat. In fact, it rhymes with cat. Now, notice how much longer Clyde is than Pat. Clyde is a little bit longer. Pat is a little bit shorter, and it has to do with that final sound. So here are the names again. Clyde, George, Mark, Kirk, and Pat. Okay, I hope that's been useful. Hopefully, by learning some of these sounds and what the spellings are, especially for one-syllable names, you'll be able to figure out some other names that we haven't talked about. Because, especially with one-syllable names, a lot of times it's easy to figure out if you know the vowel sound. So, thanks for listening, and I'll meet you again when we talk about two-syllable names, and that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, but this is where it's very, very common in these two-syllable names. So again, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.